The summit chamber's emergency lights bathed 7 delegates in strobing amber. Feathered crests lay flat against skulls. Limbs twitched in patterns no species present could identify as voluntary. At the center of the polished floor, one human stood perfectly still, jaw working slowly, fingers pinched around a half-eaten brown rectangle. He swallowed. He looked down at the nearest convulsing delegate. He looked at the chocolate. He took another bite. One story. One candy bar. Stay with us. This one only gets stranger. It'll be a quick ceremony, Solara's mentor had promised 3 hours ago, adjusting the junior observer's credentials with 2 claws while reviewing seating charts with the other 2. Solara's first summit. She'd rehearsed 12 greeting postures, memorized 47 dietary restriction codes, and packed 3 backup data styluses in case her primary one jammed during note-taking, which it always did. The Kinthari Diplomatic Corps had assigned her to shadow the proceedings as a training rotation. Nothing more. Observe, document, do not interact with the delegations unless addressed. Her feathered crests, still adolescent short compared to the senior observers, barely reached the top of her datapad when she held it at chest height. She kept them smoothed flat out of habit. A nervous tick her mentor called a work in progress. The summit chamber itself was unremarkable. Curved tiers of seating. Soft blue lighting calibrated to offend no one's photoreceptors. 42 delegations representing 38 species, each allocated a curved table and a small presentation platform for the gift exchange portion of the program. The gift exchange was, by all accounts, the easiest part. Symbolic, brief, a formality before the trade negotiations began. Solara had positioned herself at observation tier 6, close enough to see the exchange platforms clearly but far enough to remain invisible. Her data stylus was working. Her crests were flat. Everything was proceeding exactly as trained. Then the human delegation's turn came. Theo Grant stepped onto the platform with the confidence of someone who had done this 100 times before, which, according to his file, he nearly had. 31. Trade negotiator. Raised in the multicultural colonies along the fringe belt, where sharing food was how you said hello, made peace, and closed deals. His smile reached his eyes in a way that Solara's species recognition training flagged as genuine, non-threatening. He carried a small box. In human tradition, he said, voice warm and unhurried, we share something sweet when we're hoping for a sweet outcome. He opened the box. Inside, arranged in neat rows, sat individually wrapped rectangles in foil so colorful it looked almost festive. Golds, reds, deep purples. Solara noted the wrappers in her log. Harmless packaging. Decorative. The kind of small, bright detail that made gift exchanges pleasant to document. 7 delegates from 3 species accepted the offerings with appropriate ceremony. Vornak, the summit host, unwrapped his with careful claws. Purple feathered skin caught the overhead light as he turned the brown block over, inspecting it. Chocolate, Theo said helpfully. It's a casual snack. Nothing fancy. Vornak bit into it. His beady eyes widened, not in alarm, in something closer to surprise, followed by what Solara could only describe as cautious delight. 2 Drethian delegates followed, then a Mavari attaché, then 3 more Kinthari advisors, their crests lifting slightly in collective curiosity. Solara watched Theo unwrap one for himself and eat half of it in a single bite, relaxed, smiling, completely unaware that anything was about to happen. 90 seconds later, Vornak's crest went rigid. Solara's stylus stopped working, not because it jammed, because her fingers had locked around it. The first delegate to drop was a Drethian attaché. One moment upright, the next folding sideways out of the ceremonial chair like a garment sliding off a hook. No sound, no warning, just a sudden, boneless collapse that Solara's training had not covered. Then Vornak, his crest, which had been rigid for 6 seconds, began vibrating at a frequency Solara could feel in her own skull. His pupils dilated until the beady darkness swallowed the gold of his irises entirely. He gripped the edge of his table, claws scoring the composite surface, and then his legs gave out. The summit host hit the floor with a sound like a sack of grain dropped from a shelf. A low chime, then the alarms. Medical scanners activated automatically, flooding the chamber with amber light and projecting toxicology readouts above each fallen delegate. Solara read Vornak's first because he was closest. The compound identifier resolved into a word she didn't recognize. Theobromine. Classification: cardiovascular stimulant. Canthari neural receptors flagged in red. Lethal threshold: 20 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. The readout noted that Vornak had ingested approximately 90 milligrams in a single bite. But the scanner didn't stop there. It cross-referenced the compound against every species in the chamber. Drethian tolerance: 35 milligrams per kilogram. Mavari tolerance: 28 milligrams per kilogram. And at the bottom of the list, almost like an afterthought, human tolerance: 1,000 milligrams per kilogram. Solara read that number 3 times. Her crests rose so fast they ached at the base. 1,000. The humans could absorb 50 times the dose that had just dropped the summit host. And they consumed this compound recreationally. For pleasure. As a casual snack, Theo had said. The chocolate wasn't a weapon. It wasn't even medicine. It was candy. The distinction made Solara's stomach turn in a way she couldn't entirely attribute to the emergency lighting. Across the chamber, medics swarmed the fallen delegates, stabilizing neural pathways with inhibitor patches. 7 down. 3 species. All from a single brown rectangle wrapped in cheerful foil. And now, in the middle of that amber-lit chaos, Theo Grant stood exactly where he'd been standing when it started. Same spot. Same half-eaten bar pinched between his fingers. His expression had shifted from confusion to concern to something Solara could only classify as horrified guilt. The look of someone who had brought a homemade dish to a gathering and just learned it contained allergens. He watched the medics work. He looked at the chocolate. His mouth opened. "It's just candy," he said quietly. Then, with the hopeful uncertainty of a man who genuinely did not understand what had happened, "Want more?" Solara's crest flattened so hard it pressed against her skull. She closed her datapad with both hands, as if containing something dangerous inside it. How do you classify a species that eats poison for comfort? She didn't answer her own question. Not then. Not in the formal report she filed 14 hours later, which recommended a provisional ban on all unscreened Earth origin consumables pending full toxicological review. Not when her mentor read the report and asked if she was exaggerating. The chamber was empty by then. Medics gone. Delegates transferred to recovery wards. Chairs pushed back at odd angles, abandoned mid-panic. On Vornak's table, one chocolate wrapper sat where he'd left it, foil peeled open like a bright, harmless flower. Gold and purple. Festive. The kind of thing you'd overlook entirely if you didn't know what it had held. Solara paused at the doorway. Her mentor was already in the corridor. "Solara." First summit assessment. She looked back at the wrapper, then at her mentor. "Humans don't know what they are," she said. Her mentor's crest tilted. "Meaning?" Solara stepped into the corridor, letting the chamber doors close behind her. "Meaning we should find out before they do. If chocolate nearly ended a summit, what else are humans carrying in their pockets? That's tomorrow's question. Come find out."